Hello, fellow Earthlings, and welcome to Level Your Playing Field. Today, I want to talk about a couple of things, but the most important right now is that between May the 2nd and May the 4th or the 5th, as well as May 17th to the 20th, it's Veterans Roll. There's a movement. It's for World War II veterans, Rosie the Riveters, and veterans throughout 1963. And I printed this off of the internet. If you go to this website, vetrolls.org, you can get more information of any of these movements that are going on in your part of the country, because we're seeing on live streaming all over the world. So I would assume that that includes the United States, and to show support for these men and women who have survived to this day from their services in World War II, not Vietnam, but yeah, Vietnam. Korea. I'm sorry, Korea. And there are a lot of memorials all over the country, but this is in Washington, and there are numerous statues of American soldiers depicted with full gear, and there's such a haunting look about this because these men and women that served our country have long since passed on or sacrificed their lives, or are alive and not in the best of health. And the shame of this country is that our own government has been very remiss in stepping up to the plate the way that they stepped up to the plate. So as I was driving down John Devine Drive the other day, the Harley-Davidson motorcycle business had, remember, the men who served, the men and women who served our country from May 2nd to May 4th or 5th. I need to apologize. I've been having some difficulty getting rid of what makes me feel ill. And I almost didn't get here today, but I was determined to get here, so I'm here. And if I mess up, I apologize. Regarding, there is a phone number on this Vet Rolls information sheet. It's 608-207-8319. And you must have enlisted prior to December 31st, 1963. This is for both men and women. There is a picture on the internet, and it shows 2 women and at least 20 or 30 men, survivors of their service to this country. And that's why they mention Rosie the Riveter, because women, civilian women during World War II, including my own mother, they served on the home front. They ferried airplanes overseas to the different air bases to get the airplanes that were needed to the military at those locations. And they worked on ships. They worked on food lines. They did everything that, up to that point, they said that it was only men's work. Human work is what it is. It's human, whether it's a male or a female. And the fact that so many women stepped up from all races and all social standing. And this is one of the greatest gifts that our predecessors of generations prior to the current generation have given their all to this country. And it's one of the biggest reasons why I keep fighting verbally, in the hope of getting the attention of people that govern outside of the state of New Hampshire, at Washington, to see if they can do anything about resurrecting the almost dead constitutional processes that prevail in this community and state, especially at Concord. And with all of this election stuff going on and all these shenanigans, that, you know, the backbiting and the verbal assaults and the insults, they're not addressing these concerns. This is something I've been addressing on the air for almost well over 14 years, and in the community for 25. So within that 25-year frame is the 15-year time frame that I became an advocate producer. And so I've seen it firsthand. Like I've mentioned in the past, we used to have a very liberated TV 23 location on Commercial Street. We had a huge, beautiful studio. And we had an hour segment and a half-hour segment. We could take camera equipment and go to places where people called about concern to videotape their comments, to videotape their concerns of what was ongoing or going on inside their apartments, outside their apartments, on the roads, the side roads that were cluttered with trash, all kinds of concerns that were not being taken care of or even recognized by City Hall. But now we've become so limited that they practically don't allow us to operate at all, and they're just hairs away from violating our constitutional rights here at the station. Also, last week I spoke about the ADA.gov regarding the handicap door that's missing at the entrance of this building. And I spoke with Washington, D.C., and they told me there's a Title II of the ADA that is at Concord, New Hampshire. It's the Governor's Commission on Disability. And I tried to call before I came here today, but they were very busy, and I couldn't sit on the phone and wait. But I have the phone number, and if there's anybody who has a disability, access disability concern, there's a phone number, 603-271-4177. Again, 271-4177, and it's called the Governor's Commission on Disability and Access Concerns. And I'm going to keep on this until I get some answers that I can share with you, because as usual, at the local level, nobody's doing anything. I received an email from Deborah Ulster. She used to do Education Matters, and now she does City Matters. And she's announcing the event with Education Commissioner Virginia Barry and State Board of Ed Chairman Tom Raffio. She's coming out of hiding to meet with Manchester School Board next Monday, May the 4th. Do you have any questions about her new waiver-driven, regionally implemented assessment plan? Should the commissioner be allowed to redesign and control a new statewide assessment program on her own without legislative oversight or approval? So I asked a couple of questions. And I spoke with Glenn Ouellette about this, and I invited him to make comments at around 4:30, 4:45, because he doesn't speak without research. He doesn't speak without knowing what he's talking about. And I asked this question: the rule of law and all of its statuses seems to be ignored repeatedly in our community and country. Instead of targeting a perceived enemy who is running for office or holds office and does so in an unconstitutional manner, allegedly, then how is it possible that so much outlawism is sanctioned in Manchester and Concord, New Hampshire? What makes any official, despite their title, more important than the rule of law? How can voting for a matter in less than full House of Congressional or Senate be allowed? And why haven't the parties who presented or snuck in additional unspoken or presented matter or matters not held accountable for these fraudulent processes? How can justice prevail when the greatest injustices have been sanctioned against the constitutional rights of this country's citizens seemingly forever? How does that work, and why does it work? One has to consider the seemingly hidden agenda of these procedures and processes. Who are the unknown entities who appear to have more power over the rule of our laws than the law itself? It would be like an incomplete jury voting as a full jury against a proven crime, or an officer of the law taking the law into his or her own hands instead of exercising due process. The law, at least in Manchester and Concord, New Hampshire, has been so ignored, one cannot help but wonder why, and for the sake of those who appear to orchestrate and get away with it every single day, to the detriment of the rights of many citizens and expected constitutional processes, continues to do so. The Commissioner of Education, has anyone thought to check into her background, her finances, to see if she's receiving any kind of financial incentive to conduct herself in the manner in which she is conducting herself? Is she on any kind of medication that might be affecting her clarity in these matters? Why is her position stated that a public meeting rarely, why is her position that she stated a public meeting rarely accomplishes the kind of meaningful conversation necessary to support students and families in these complex times? How can she know what parents are thinking if they cannot voice their opinions or concerns? And also to learn the other side of the coin. What is it that this commissioner and some teachers and other education personnel are trying to impose on their children without the benefit of the parents knowing what's going on, so that they have a choice or they have a voice to either accept or protest? How can she know what parents are thinking if they cannot voice their opinions and or concerns? This perceived dictatorial posture seems to easily identify this commissioner's opinion of parent and students' rights in an allegedly free country. How can one person be the only end all and be all of these kinds of situations? Why is her opinion the only opinion being considered when addressing the concerns and rights of so many students and their families? Where did she come from, and why is she being allowed to act as if she and only she has a right to an opinion? What is her agenda in these concerns? Who is she serving, and why has she been allowed to refuse to meet with officials regarding these concerns? This so smacks of arrogance, sense of entitlement, pomposity, and abuse of title a blind person could see. So, how does one person have the wherewithal to refuse 5 times to meet with the authorities that want to speak to her about these concerns? Does she feel so she's well insulated by the powers that she genuflects to, that she doesn't have to be held accountable? There was another thing that I wanted to talk about regarding veterans. This was something that I downloaded in 2012, and it was about World War II medals and recognitions. Mr. Hayward of the Union Leader wrote a piece about your piece on this war hero is missing the why factor. It does not explain why it took decades to honor this hero and veteran. Too many veterans have died without receiving their earned medals of valor, and this veteran, now 88 years old, had to wait until now to be recognized and awarded his well-earned recognition. Can you elaborate as to why this happens, and who is the cause of this massive time factor of decades to get their job done? And the reason I read this is because it is now 2015, and still this situation prevails. These men and women that stepped up to the plate. And how many horror stories have we heard in the last decade about the medical facilities that are lacking for our veterans. And all of the mental health programs that are required and needed to treat the post-traumatic stress disorder, amputee concerns, wellness concerns, mental health concerns. You know, this motto of live free or die in Manchester, actually, if you look at it from another point of view, yes, if you don't live free, you do die. And there's a lot of veterans in our community and state that have passed on because they didn't get the right medication, they didn't get the right treatments, they had to be bused to out-of-state locations for their medical needs. You know, I don't understand that. It will not compute to me that this state that has, I don't know how many thousands of people, taxpayers, and there can't be programs that benefit veterans, and then they're subsidized by the government. There's a perceived mindset that is so cruel in its perception of so whatism, of ignoring, of absolutely ignoring the rule of law and the rule of decency. These men and women stepped up to the plate, just like firefighters and state troopers and police officers and emergency medical caregivers who put their lives on the line sometimes in order to rescue someone who needs rescuing. You know, one and one don't make two here. It doesn't compute, it doesn't balance out, it doesn't ring true to the expected compliance of local, state, and federal law. And it really upsets me because I'm living this, and I have it good compared to some of the people that I've met through the years, because they don't know how to fight for themselves, or they're too afraid, or they're just too tired and too sick to even get out of bed. And I just can't stand by and not speak about it. I don't understand the contradictions. I really don't. Now, I received this email. It's going around the internet. And Warren Buffett and many others are asking each addressee to forward this email to a minimum of 20 people on their address list. In turn, ask each of those to do likewise. In 3 days, most people in the United States of America will have the message. This is one idea that should really be passed around. Congress and all the current recipients are not going to do this on their own. It will require the individual American voter to cause a national amendment. And this is what he writes, the Buffett rule. We must support this. We must support this, pass it on, and let's see if these idiots understand what people pressure is all about. Now, this is about salaries of government. Salary of a retired U.S. president for life, $180,000. Salary of House Senate members, $174,000 for life. And then he comments, this is stupid. Now here comes one that surprises the heck out of me. Salary of the Speaker of the House, $223,500 for life. Now, how come the Speaker of the House is granted more money than the President of the United States? Salary of majority minority leaders, $193,400 for life. Average salary of a teacher is $40,065. Average salary of a deployed soldier, $38,000. I think we found where the cuts should be made. If you agree, pass it on, or as I just did. Warren Buffett, in a recent interview with CNBC, offers one of the best quotes about the debt ceiling. I could end the deficit in 5 minutes, he told CNBC. You just pass a law that says that anytime there is a deficit of more than 3% of the gross of GDP, all sitting members of Congress are ineligible for re-election. The 26th Amendment, granting the right to vote for 18-year-olds, took only 3 months and 8 days to be ratified. Why? Simple. The people demanded it. This was in 1971, before computers, email, cell phones, etc. Of the 27 amendments to the Constitution, 7 took 1 year or less to become the law of the land, all because of public pressure. Warren Buffett is asking each addressee to forward this email to a minimum of 20 people on their address list. In turn, ask each of those to do likewise. In 3 days, most people in the United States of America will have the message. This is one idea that should really be passed around. Congressional Reform Act of 2015. First, no tenure, no pension. A congressman or woman collects a salary while in office and receives no pay once they are out of office. 2, Congress, past, present, and future, participates in Social Security. All funds in the Congressional Retirement Fund move to the Social Security system immediately. All future funds flow into the Social Security system, and Congress participates with the American people. It may not be used for any other purpose. 3, Congress can purchase their own retirement plan just as all Americans do. 4, Congress will no longer vote themselves a pay raise. Congressional pay will rise by the lower of CPI or 3%. Congress loses their current health care system and participates in the same health care system as the American people. 6, Congress must equally abide by all laws they impose on the American people. In other words, they don't get a free get-out-of-jail card. All contracts with past and present congressmen and women are void, effective 12/1/15. The American people did not make this contract with congressmen and women. Congress made all of these contracts for themselves. Serving in Congress is an honor, not a career. The Founding Fathers envisioned citizen legislators, so ours should serve their term, then go home and go back to work. If each person contacts a minimum of 20 people, then it will only take 3 days for most people in the U.S. to receive the message. Don't you think it's time? This is how you fix Congress. If you agree, pass it on. If not, delete the email. Now, that's a very telling bit of information. And throughout history, especially during the First World War and the Second World War, when a lot of politicians were home for the holidays, certain legislation was passed, carte blanche, and became the rule of law. And in some cases, the persons that perpetrated that regretted it later, and they spoke to that. But the damage was done. So my question has always been, why are these illegal wrongdoings, why aren't they repealed? It says to repeal, to officially make a law no longer valid. To, excuse me, to rescind or annul by authoritative act, especially to revoke or abrogate by legislative enactment, to abandon, to make obsolete, to summon, to return. In 1933, Congress passed the 21st Amendment, which repealed the Prohibition Amendment of 1919, thus making the sale, distribution, and use of alcohol once again legal. So, how come all these governments that have happened since World War I, how come in all those decades of unconstitutionality, all these laws that shouldn't be on the books, that were snuck in under the wire, so to speak. Why haven't they been repealed? Why hasn't our government reviewed every single rule of law and examined it openly to a full body of senators and congressmen and women, and then voted to repeal it? Because it has caused such great hardship on the human community of the United States of America. How to fix the Constitution. Imagine, for instance, a federal amendment giving each state at least one senator and capping even the largest state at 8 senators. What they want to do is reduce the members of Congress and the Senate down to 1 according to the size of the state. Because there seems to be so much corruption. So much corruption, and the do as I say, not as I do mentality that has adversely affected the rights across the board of just about everyone from the womb to the tomb. And the smugness of the arrogance, the perceived sense of entitlement of these men and women who stand up there holding a very honorable title and acting most dishonorably. I have a DVD that I want to share with you that was provided to me by Glenn Ouellette. It's 4 minutes and 13 seconds. And hopefully Mr. Ouellette will have time to speak to the comments about the commissioner and the pending investigation or the meeting that she finally acquiesced to. So, okay, John, whenever you're ready.
When the night seems long, when the fight's too strong, I don't have to stop, I can carry on. When I see no hope, when I feel alone, I can walk this road because I know I got a faith bigger than my fear. Not gonna quit, I'm gonna persevere. Nothing can stop me now, not gonna hold me down. I got a dream, I'm gonna live it out. Never gonna give up, never gonna give in, never gonna quit as long as I'm living. Imagine the impossible, anything is possible. I believe, I believe, I believe it. I can see it now, right in front of me. All I have to do is just believe, and even when it's tough and I've had enough, I can find the strength inside. I know I got a faith bigger than my fear. Not gonna quit, I'm gonna persevere. Nothing can stop me now, not gonna hold me down. I got a dream, I'm gonna live it out. Never gonna give up, never gonna give in, never gonna quit as long as I'm living.
Okay, I have Glenn with me, and we were talking about the perceptions that appear to be very glaringly apparent. So go ahead, Glenn.
There is a very important school board meeting this coming Monday at City Hall on the 3rd floor in the chambers. And the guests that we've been trying to get on for the last 5.5 months, and she's been saying no, 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 she has no time for us, although she's a paid employee from our taxes, is Commissioner of Education Virginia Berry. She will be here with the chairman of the New Hampshire Education Board, and his name is Raphael. And they're just trying to throw Common Core down our throats. Now, last year they withheld almost a $5 million check from our city for education for almost 4 or 5 months because we weren't conforming to her rules. Well, you don't shove things down people's throats. It never went to the Congress, so there's no federal law. It never went to the state in Congress, so there's no state law. Last Wednesday they passed a law in New Hampshire with both House and Senate that stated that the districts of New Hampshire, school districts of New Hampshire, have a right to choose yes or no on Common Core. And that's why she's coming here, to tell us that they shouldn't be wasting their time in Concord to creating useless laws. That's not a useless law. It gives you a choice. It's your right as a parent. It's your right as a parent to pull your kids out of school if you want to. They are your kids. They are not the state's or the federal government's kids to make robots out of. They're creating this tablet that all school students are going to have. And when you go home with your homework, if the mom or the dad is behind you, it's controlled by the vision of the eye. As soon as it sees another pair of eyes, it shuts down the computer. The tablet shuts down. Why don't they want parents to know what's in the homework? What's there to hide? A lot, obviously.
And who came up with that program?
About 5 men, rich men, big corporations who stand to make lots of money, of course, because they now control the book companies. And Pearson is from London, England, and he controls all books around the world now for testing.
Yes, but who allowed them to be accepted?
Who do you think? Our federal government.
I'm talking about at the local level.
Or at the local level, it was pounced on us through the feds pounced it on the state is pouncing it on us. And shut down my phone.
But is that legal? Is it constitutionally legal?
We say it's not because, like I said, it never went through Congress. It was never signed by the president, so that means there's no law in the federal government. It never went to the state legislature. The governor never signed it, so there's no state law on it either, so it's being shoved down. It's part of one world order that's slowly embedding into our lives.
Slowly.
It's getting here, trust me. But we need to continue fighting it because it's... can you imagine if they have their way with this one world order? I thought I shut it off. There will be one currency of money. There will be one president for the entire world. I don't think so. I don't think we as Americans want to give away our sovereignty or our currency.
Or our freedom.
Yes.
And to continue to bully kids into these situations, so that at a very early age they are learning that there's really no freedom. And even if their parents are trying to protect them, their protection's not there.
So Monday night at 7 o'clock, it's a very important meeting. The 700 children in our schools so far that have opted out to take the test, most of you have parents, if not all. So parents, it is very important for you to come and speak your 3 minutes. And if you don't want to speak, just be in the audience and support those that are speaking on your behalf. And tell the Secretary of Education or the Commissioner of Education and the chairman that we don't have to be bullied by them, that we pay their salary and they work for us. And the kids, our children that are sent to school every day, They're on loan to the schools from the parents. They don't own the kids. They still belong to the parents. And when they have homework, their homework should be exposed to the parents. It's crazy, like 2 and 2 are 4. I'm shutting it off and it's not shutting off. 2 and 2 are 4, yet on a test, if you put down 2 and 2 are 4, they'll mark it wrong. You have to do it their way, and their way is 2 and 2 are 4, plus 2 is 6, minus 2 is 4. Why are we teaching kids such a difficult way? And you know how we used to have to memorize the multiplication tables? They can't do that anymore. They're not allowed to do that. And they took half the books that were in school that were good books out of school, and now they're putting very inappropriate sexual innuendo books. Look what happened just a couple of weeks ago in Hosville School. Hosville School, where they had a bully lesson, and they had a...
Yeah, that little boy.
Yeah, I mean, that's unacceptable.
I don't understand that. You know, this is contrary to the very basic constitutionality of any and every component of these circumstances at local, state, and federal. You know, how are these people getting away with it? This is what burns me to the core.
Because we're letting them do it.
No, we're not letting them do it. They're doing it and then imposing it on us because
yes,
we don't
true,
know.
But
because,
we have to stop it.
Well, of course, but you know,
people are finally
because
realizing.
it's finally getting leaked out.
Yes.
Okay, but look how long this has been going on.
I know, but myself and a group of ladies here in our district, we've been at it since 2013. When on October 16th, the Mayor Gatzis, told 160 parents, go home and don't worry, we'll do the job. But they didn't do the job.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it's a financial aspect of books and who chooses the publishers, I've asked this question 1,000 times.
There's only one publisher now.
Yeah.
They bought off all the big publishers.
Okay, well, that's a monopoly, and a monopoly is against the Constitution in this United States.
Same thing as the computers. Since Bill Gates has spent $10 million in school districts, he's been given permission that only his computers, only Microsoft computers will be bought, and not Apple's. So that is a conflict of interest.
That's
monopoly. He stands to make more than the $10 billion that he spent.
Not only that, but it's all tax deductible. All this charitable BS, it's all tax deductible. It's just a show. It's just a show.
And I still maintain that children in school need books. It's okay to have a tablet and a computer, but you don't want their eyes always on there. It's not good for your eyes. You know how they say don't watch too much TV if you get too close to the TV? It's the same thing with this. And then when you read a book, you can't beat reading a book versus reading it on a tablet. The pages don't turn. It's just not the same thing.
And the glare of the lights, and it's a totally different structure. You know.
To me, that's misuse of technology.
Well, I think it's an abuse of power.
It wasn't meant for that.
And what about? I always speak to this because it's part of the equation. What about the newcomers that come here and can't even read English, much less apply themselves to a tablet?
Well, you got a good point there. Now, let me just make a strong point here. We have a child who started school in the kindergarten. So it doesn't matter if he's an immigrant or refugee. He's been here since the kindergarten. He's now in the 5th grade. So they talk about No Child Left Behind. He reads at the 1st grade level. You tell me he was not left behind. Somehow he didn't get the extra tutoring that he needed, and they kept passing him. If he continues doing that, he graduates. What have we done to this child? We've ruined his future. He has no future. That's not education.
Well, this is because it's been allowed.
Common Core now allows it even worse.
Well,
and you know what's even worse? They want to change the names. You know how we call teachers teachers? They now want to call them facilitators, because they will be told by the higher-ups what they're going to teach. It'll come in every day. That's not one-on-one teaching. Education is better done by a teacher who can work with students, not being dictated what you're going to teach, who you're going to help.
The curriculum.
Yeah.
And what about if they get to the college level?
That's simple. You know why it's simple? Because the same people who created Common Core are creating a form of Common Core for colleges. So they will be completely in control of all our students from preschool until college. That's why they want to create 2 free years of college, because since they're paying the bill, they're in control. You do as they say. Same thing as preschool. We now have kindergarten. Now they want to go full-time preschool because they would get the kids in school from 3 years old until their early 20s when they get out of college. That's a long time to control a child. And then on these assessment tests, they ask data questions. For example, they might ask, how many beers does your father drink at night? It's none of their business. If a child is being abused, that's something else. But the way that they put it up there.
The way that the world reacts to this kind of control, attempted control factor, always erupts in riots and bombings and fires and things. And this is what is going to happen.
There will be a revolution, unfortunately.
And there's going to be a lot of victimization, and the perpetrators of these things will still get away unscathed because our government is not protecting the people against that kind of mentality.
You wonder why today, in general, the population in the U.S. are really upset, and they hold our Congress and our legislatures. They just don't trust them anymore, and that's why. And for example, too many of our police officers around the country have been trained to be more like military police. We're not the enemy.
Well, that's sort of like a catch-22 because
crime is not a war.
No, yeah, in a way it is. Just hear me out, okay? When a police officer walks up to a car, he or she doesn't know if they're going to walk away from that car.
I understand that. But you don't sever someone's spinal cord because they were just walking.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Or you don't shoot someone 5 times in the back when they're running away from you. They don't even have a gun.
I know. Well, I commented on that as well. But these individuals make the rest of the police department in all parts of this country look very bad.
Because
and
it's a very small minority.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
there should be psychological testing, let's say once every other year, to see if the stress of the job has gotten to the police officer so they can get the help that they need, instead of it building up into a rage where they do something illegal or they take a life.
Even here in the city, we relatively have a very good police force. You always have a few bad apples.
Well,
the only problem with a few bad apples is when you catch them, they should pay for being a bad apple. What they're doing is they're letting them getting away with it. Look at the guy from Bedford who lived in Bedford but was a cop in Manchester and hit those 2 kids. He tried very hard to get away with it, and good thing that they said, no, you can't do that, and now he's in jail if he's not already out. You know, there's consequences for everything, and I don't care if you're the president or whoever you are, you're rich or poor. If you commit a crime, you're as much
to be held accountable.
That's right, as anybody else.
Well, you know, that is one of the biggest contradictions that people have to fight every day, because you never know from what is going to take place, because you expect one thing, turns out to be another, because we live in a constitutional country that says we're supposed to expect constitutionality, but it doesn't happen.
We have too many now elected officials who don't follow the Constitution. That's the problem.
Well, that's the whole thing,
yes.
Because they're already bought and sold, or at least that's the way it appears. And if I'm wrong, I would be happy to say so. But
unfortunately, you're not in many cases.
The thing is that everybody knows it, but our own government isn't monitoring and getting rid of these people that are violating all kinds of rules of law. They just let them get away with it, or they resign, or they're allowed to just walk away and not be.
Because
look at Donald Rumsfeld. Donald Rumsfeld is one of the most prolific murderers of human history. When he released that poison that had been banned in this country up until he took over the FDA. And look how many millions and millions of people have died across the country, not to mention the billions of dollars of medical care for people who became so ill.
And the millions that he made in profit.
Well, he made $12 million as a CEO, and God knows how much more he's made ever since. But the point is that he is a criminal. Hitler was a criminal. He's worse than Hitler in the sense of the deaths toll that he's contributed to, and he's not being held accountable. So what kind of government do we have?
It's the same thing as Monsanto.
Yeah.
They passed a bill either the end of last year or the beginning of this year. I think it was this year.
Yeah, they
when
didn't want to
passed
be
the
held
budget,
accountable.
they put it under the budget, so it got stayed. So if you plant some of their seeds and it poisons you, you can't sue them.
Yeah, well, that's going to
Really?
be changed because here's the
Oh, you
email.
found it.
He holds a patent that could destroy Monsanto and change the world.
Yeah.
This man, with God's good grace, found a way to grow crops without poisoning the soil or the people. And in 1906, a patent was granted to a man named Paul Stamets. Though Paul is the world's leading mycologist, his patent has received very little attention and exposure. Why is that? Stated by executives in the pesticide industry, this patent represents the most disruptive technology we have ever witnessed. And when the executives say disruptive, they are referring to being disruptive to the chemical pesticides industry. He found a way to safely and nearly permanently control over 200,000 species of insects, and all thanks to the magic of mushrooms, which is a guide given. Paul does this by taking entomoethogenic fungi that destroys insects and morphs it so that it does not produce spores. In turn, this actually attracts the insects, who then eat and turn into fungi from the inside out. This patent has the potential to revolutionize the way humans grow crops if it can be allowed to reach mass exposure. And so this man is in court holding Monsanto accountable for stealing his and so we're going to see we're going to see how that works out.
I hope he gets justice, really,
Well, what about
on our behalf.
Well,
as
not
well as
only
his.
that, but all the people, and all of these companies and all of these businesses that carry all of this poisonous food content. It's something that I speak to all the time because I cannot understand how a Right to Life hospital like CMC can provide aspartame-related products to their patients, in-house patients, especially the diabetic. And even in some of the prescribed medications or over-the-counter medications that clearly state phenylalanine, which is another word for aspartame. So, you know, it's like, what is it? Genocide? Is that the right word? When you try to eliminate
Yes.
a human life altogether. And poison the soil and poison the air. And I've asked this question 1,000 times. What air are all of these idiots going to breathe? And what water are they going to drink? And what food are they going to eat once they have, if they succeed in poisoning the planet as a whole? Where are they going to go?
What's even worse is that they'll pass away like we all do, but it'll be their children and grandchildren that'll have to
I
suffer
know.
for their mistakes because they wanted to get rich.
Well, this is true, but it's very apparent that they don't care about that.
Obviously
I've thought
not.
that 1,000 times.
Obviously not.
Just like some families who are military and they're very proud, and the next generation steps up when needed. But these people are the opposite. They appear to be thinking only of their present time frame, and you know, what is that? Damn the torpedoes full speed ahead on keeping it going and not worrying about their families or their friends. It's just, it's dictatorship on a monumental scale. And it's murder, you know, incorporated, and our own government isn't doing anything about it. So, you know, you just wonder,
Yes,
you know,
you do.
how it came to be. So, Glenn,
Our forefathers must be turning in their graves.
well,
They never
and
envisioned
you know,
this.
Thomas Jefferson was a very wise man, and he alludes to the fact that that without the Constitution,
That's exactly why they wrote it that way. You're correct.
exactly, and all of the things that followed after that, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Bill of Rights, and the Civil Rights Law.
Just think that for 50 years we had a law in Congress, a federal law, to allow every citizen the right to vote if you're an American citizen. Last year, they withdrew that law. So this year, you're going to see a lot of Americans who used to vote are not going to be allowed to vote. I don't understand why we need to go backwards. You think we'd learn from our lessons, and we're not.
Yes, but who allowed this to happen?
Well, the Congress, of course. Greed. They're getting something out of it.
Well, this Buffett, I don't know if you have a copy of that, but this man called Buffett, he spoke about the salaries. I have maybe a few minutes here. He spoke about the salaries of the members of salary of a retired U.S. president is $180,000 for life. Salary of House Senate, $174,000 for life. Speaker of the House gets $223,500 for life. He gets more than the president.
Well, the president gets 200 now. How old is that?
Well, I got this 4/30/2015.
Because I remember when George Bush first became president, Jr., the first thing he passed,
I know,
he doubled his salary.
I know. Salary of majority minority leaders, $193,400. Average school teacher, $40,065. Deployed soldier, $38,000. So he says the 26th Amendment took only 3 months and 8 days to be ratified. And so he's asking people to pass this along to 20 other people by the email so that they can protest. And you know, how can you repeal a congressional law and not repeal the violation of a congressional law? So
Somehow they're all bought off.
well, I don't know how, well, you know, there's
Too much conflict of interest now. And it doesn't matter what party you belong to or who's president or who's in the Congress. They bicker just the same, and there's no end.
well,
We used to have compromise in the House and Senate. It doesn't exist anymore.
it,
All they do is blame. There's enough blame to go around, I think.
well, they have to do that to keep people confused.
That's true.
Okay, I'm not going to get to this time. I'll do it next time. But Deborah sent me, you know, the Commissioner Barry information. So we're going to see how that works out. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I know that there's a lot of you out there that don't need to know or to be reminded that freedom isn't free, and that for a very long time, the people that we entrusted with our vote and our trust have violated that trust. And please, please do not be so blind as to fall for all of their publicity crap, because they hire people to present them in the best possible light. The best possible light. Frank Winter left his people left a message on my answering machine about the heroin epidemic and the concerns for that. He wants to legislate something. I've been trying to get legislation to revoke workers' compensation fraud. Nothing. Mr. Ginter has known, Senator D'Alessandro has known, Governor Hassan has known, Senator and Governor Jean Shaheen has known, Chris Pappas has known. Nobody has done anything about it. So when you consider voting this time, if you have a computer, do a little research and see if you can trust these people to continue to violate the rule of law.
Even here in this city,
I gotta go.
we have a city where we're not allowed to ask questions at public hearings. Can you imagine that? It's our money that they're spending, and you can't ask where the money's going.
Well, but it's the way it's done. It's the question of the way it's done.
But they don't allow any questions.
John, is it time for me to go? Hello?
Yes, he said.
Okay, please remember, ladies and gentlemen, that freedom has been free, and so long until next time.